Four Paws for Whales for Hunger is a crazy idea I had to roll across Massachusetts in my electric wheelchair with my Labradoodle Mocha and try to use the goodwill that I experience every day when I roll to raise awareness and money and to deal with the increased hunger from the pandemic. In late February, there was a beautiful sunny day, and Mocha and I were rolling around the neighborhood, and because of the pandemic, there were tons of people out. And generally, everybody was super nice to me in my wheelchair, and they love Mocha because he's just adorable. I can't say I was looking for something to do. I was really enjoying meditating. I was taking courses, but there's something in me that just says that's not enough. I need to work to right injustice. No one told me to stop. Everybody kept telling me it was a good idea, and friends and family came together. Everybody I told said, "How can I help?" And there have been times when I said, somebody should have told me this was a bad idea. But nobody, absolutely nobody said it was a bad idea. Everybody has pitched in to help. I think I've always had a really strong feeling that people should act to make this a better society. That there should be fairness in the world. My desire to keep working to make the earth a better place, to make the society a better place, is intrinsic in my being. I just remember being a young kid and thinking, I have to make a difference in this world. I grew up during the Vietnam War era, and my third grade teacher had an art camp. And she and her boyfriend taught us art, and they were wonderful, and they talked about politics, and they talked about the Vietnam War, and it turned out that her boyfriend was a draft dodger, and the FBI came in and arrested him right in front of us as a third grader. And that made an impression, as did all of the bodies that I saw on TV. That was a piece of this can't be the best the world can be. I've got to do my little part to make it better. When I was 14, I was protesting supermarkets that were taking grapes and lettuce that weren't from the unionized farm workers because the farm laborers were being paid terribly, living in squalid conditions, and nothing had been done. And then when I was a sophomore in high school, the worst hurricane since 1780, I think, hit Honduras and all of Latin America. And thousands of people died, hundreds of thousands were displaced. And I went to an assembly at school and asked everybody to skip a meal and donate, and we raised over $1,000. And then when I got into college, the Greenpeace movement had started, and I went to McGill up in Montreal, and that's where the SEAL campaign was based out of. From the time I was 19, I was working to stop the slaughter of baby seals. After that, I went to stop the slaughter of whales. I have a special bond with whales. I went on to co-found Greenpeace USA. I started protesting and just trying to change the world. And then I recognized that there's a bigger system. And in order to make real change, you need to change laws or you need to bring lawsuits. So I decided that I would go and become an environmental lawyer. The thing that was most pressing was toxic waste. And there were people living in communities that had been flooded by chemicals from the surrounding industry who in one case literally were living in houses that had lethal doses of dry cleaning compounds coming up through their floor. And so I worked representing the communities to get them clean water, clean air, the contamination cleaned up. I worked with corporations to change their practices. I worked with developers who would go in and buy a contaminated site, clean it up, and turn it into something useful. The pressing issue that I wanted to work on was climate change. Not the big climate change, not the carbon dioxide, which is critical, but a piece, the gases that were put in refrigeration and air conditioning to replace the ozone depleting chemicals were terrible. They were hundreds or thousands of times as bad for the climate as carbon dioxide. The emissions from refrigerated gases were going to offset everything that was promised under the Paris Accord. So I worked to get a phase down of those chemicals, which is going to stop 100 billion tons of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gases from going into the atmosphere by 2050. It's a piece. It's not going to cure climate change, but it's going to potentially stop up to a degree of warming by 2100, which just gives us more time to get the carbon dioxide problem under control. What I found surprising is some of my good friends, there's one couple in particular who live in Vermont and a woman who lives in Acton. I've known them for years, and they've been working on hunger for years, and I never knew it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I had these hunger experts because they were dedicating their time to their local food pantries, delivering meals during the pandemic, and doing just amazing things. So that's been surprising. And the other thing that's really amazed me is a couple of my friends qualified for the stimulus payment and they got their check. They thought that there were people more in need than them. And so they're just holding it for the right cause. And they both gave me their full stimulus check as donations. And these are people who could have used the money. And they decided rather than spend that money themselves, they would donate it to 4Paws and combating hunger. Got a bunch of calls from friends saying, how can I help? From every part of my career, going back to Greenpeace in 1981. My children unanimously have all helped in different ways. Mm-hmm. My wife Susan has been immensely supportive. She has become so supportive of me because of my illness. It's nice for me to be doing something where we're kind of equal partners and we're trying to co-create a vision, if you will. What I think people don't understand, they think the pandemic is kind of past, the stimulus bills have passed, everything should be going back to normal, but the Greater Boston Food Bank served more food and had more requests for food in April and May of this year than they had through the whole pandemic. So the economic consequences are really starting to show. People have struggled through the pandemic. They've come to the end of their unemployment. They've come to the end of their savings, and they need help. I think our society has evolved, so there's a greater disparity of income. What most people probably don't know is that 1 in 8 children in Massachusetts are food insecure, and that means they don't know where their next meal's coming from. And hunger has doubled in Massachusetts because of the pandemic. It's astounding how big the problem is and how little coverage it's gotten. 1 billion children worldwide have not gone to school, and one of the most devastating parts of that is a lot of the meal programs are school-based. So if there's no school, there's no food for those children. And hunger causes lifelong learning disabilities, and it makes it so those children grow up to adults who can't take care of themselves, can't provide for their family, and then the cycle of hunger continues. And it's possible to break that. But the pandemic has set back, maybe by as much as 10 years, the work that's been done to alleviate poverty around the world. Climate change is already disrupting food production. It's causing droughts. It's causing floods. Last year in the Midwest, massive amounts of crops got flooded out. At the same time, crops in California are struggling because of the drought. Worldwide, it's even bigger, and it's just going to get more and more serious. And the number of people who are displaced by climate change related natural disasters actually was more than the number of people who were displaced by wars last year. And so it is a huge problem. It's coming at us full speed, and if we don't prepare, we're going to have more food insecurity. If we do prepare and deal with the issue, there is enough food, we can grow enough food, and we can actually end hunger. We have a responsibility as a society to do something about it. And it's not just one person, it's not just one city, it's just not one country. It's literally around the world. We've all got to act together, or we're going to have devastating consequences. This is a grassroots issue. It's going to be a grassroots solution, and I'm hoping that people that we pass along the way and who hear about this donate $5, $25, whatever you can. Together, if everybody does something, we'll get it done. What I would say to people who say that they can't do anything about this is that there are two things to think about. First, if everybody does something, together we can really make change. And second, there are a lot of really simple things you can do. You can donate, that's the easiest. You can donate food, you can donate your time. All of these hunger organizations run on volunteers, and if they don't have volunteers, they don't get the food out and they can't supply as many people. One of the things we're trying to do on social media is to point out the problem, but we are also putting out positive ideas of things people can do, how you can help, where you can volunteer, what you can do, how you can make a difference. If you have an hour a week, if you have 10 hours a week, if you have no time, there are things you can do. You just have to be creative. In the logistics of the walk, we need people to drive the safety car. We need people, if they want to walk with us, that would be great. Other ways they can get involved is we are looking for volunteers who can do outreach to spread the word, talk about hunger, get in touch with businesses along the way, get in touch with places of worship along the way, to try to make this really a pause to talk about hunger. And the more people we have doing that outreach, the more it will be talked about. I'm hoping to raise $250,000. half of that is going to the 4 food banks in Massachusetts, and those 4 food banks provide food to over 1,000 hunger organizations. So it's really going to help hunger in Massachusetts, and the other half is going to Save the Children, which is going to help hunger in the world. This is the star of the show. This is Mocha. He's my adorable little puppy. Every dog has a personality, and Mocha is the most emotionally sensitive dog. He'll come and put his head on my lap when I'm getting an infusion just to make me feel better. And if you want to pet him, he will let you pet him forever. I'm just going to do my little piece, and I'm not going to solve hunger, but I might get people to think about it, and I'll raise hopefully some serious money to help with the current crisis, and then hopefully the discussion around hunger can end hunger. I'm an event. I'm going to be 7 weeks talking about hunger, and I'm hoping that that will give a boost to the food banks that we're supporting directly, but also the other hunger agencies that are responding to the emergency, and the other hunger organizations that are trying to make systemic change.